Michael Johnson gazed out of the window of his corner office at the bustling streets of Chicago below. As the executive editor at the Chicago Tribune, he had built a career that many envied. His wife, Emily Johnson, was equally successful, holding the prestigious position of senior vice president at Greenwood Publishing. They had 2 children, Matthew, who was 23, and Olivia, who was 21. Both kids were excelling in their respective fields, with Matthew finishing his international diplomacy studies at Princeton and Olivia studying environmental science at UC Berkeley. Michael and Emily's life appeared perfect on the outside. They had been married for 25 years, celebrated with a lavish anniversary party where Michael had gifted Emily a diamond necklace. They were known in their social circles as the power couple, balancing demanding careers and family life seamlessly. But beneath the surface, cracks had started to form, unseen by the public eye. This particular evening, Emily was excited about attending a charity gala. She had a new black dress, backless and strapless, which she complemented with the diamond necklace, sapphire earrings, and a replica of Princess Diana's ring. Michael, dressed in his Brooks Brothers tuxedo, admired his wife's beauty as she prepared for the evening. At the gala, the atmosphere was vibrant. Emily quickly immersed herself in conversations, her laughter echoing across the room. Michael watched from a distance, sipping his champagne, content to let her enjoy herself. However, his mood soured when he noticed a slick-looking man engaging Emily in conversation, touching her arm and shoulder with familiarity. Just as Michael was about to intervene, a soft hand grabbed his arm. "Don't do anything. My name is Rachel, and I know what's happening," said the striking brunette standing beside him. Rachel pointed out 2 men strategically positioned around the room, clearly watching him. "That man with your wife is David Williams. He's a predator. He plans to take her to the balcony and make a move. I was in your wife's position 7 years ago." Rachel's words hit Michael hard. He watched helplessly as Emily and David moved towards the balcony. Rachel's tale of her own encounter with David, which had led to her marriage's collapse and her subsequent breakdown, mirrored his worst fears. "If you confront him now, it will make things worse. Trust me, I've been there. Let's leave together, and you can figure out your next steps," Rachel suggested. As Michael and Rachel left the gala, Michael's mind raced. He was torn between confronting Emily and following Rachel's advice. They found a quiet spot at a nearby bar where Rachel shared more of her painful past. She explained how David had charmed her, leading to a weekend of passion that destroyed her marriage. Her husband couldn't forgive her, and the fallout was devastating, resulting in her spending months in a psychiatric ward. Michael knew he had to act, but his mind was clouded with anger and betrayal. He couldn't believe Emily, the woman he had loved for over 2 decades, was falling for a man like David. As they finished their drinks, Michael thanked Rachel for her honesty and support. He promised to stay in touch and left, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his life was about to change irrevocably. Back home, the house felt empty without Emily. Michael couldn't sleep, his mind replaying the events of the evening. He decided to take action. The first step was to call his best friend and attorney, John Miller. They had served together in the Air Force, and John had always been there for him. Michael knew he needed John's legal expertise and emotional support for what lay ahead. The next morning, Michael made a list of tasks. He called a locksmith to change all the locks and arranged to sell Emily's car, a BMW he had bought for their anniversary. He also reached out to Joe, an investigative reporter at the Tribune, to dig up everything he could on David Williams. Michael was determined to protect his family and ensure Emily and David faced the consequences of their actions. By mid-morning, John arrived with his paralegal, ready to assist Michael. They worked tirelessly to prepare the divorce papers and a restraining order. John advised Michael to stay calm and focused, reminding him that he had the upper hand. Michael appreciated John's steadying presence, knowing he couldn't have navigated this ordeal alone. As they wrapped up their work, the doorbell rang. It was Andy, the car buyer, there to pick up the BMW. Michael felt a pang of sadness as he watched the car being towed away, a symbol of the life he was leaving behind. But he knew it was necessary. He had to make a stand and reclaim control over his life. That evening, Michael sat alone in his living room, a glass of bourbon in hand. He thought about his children, Matthew and Olivia, and how this would impact them. He resolved to be honest with them, to explain the situation without vilifying their mother. They deserved the truth, and he hoped they would understand his actions. As the sun set, Michael felt a sense of calm wash over him. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was ready to face it. He knew there would be difficult days, but with the support of friends like John and the lessons learned from Rachel, he believed he could find a way through the pain. Michael vowed to rebuild his life, stronger and wiser, determined to never let betrayal break him again. The charity gala was held at the luxurious Grand Marquis Hotel, a venue known for its opulent decor and breathtaking views of the Chicago skyline. As Michael and Emily Johnson arrived, the grand chandelier in the foyer cast a warm, welcoming glow. Guests in elegant attire mingled, the soft murmur of conversation punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter. Emily looked stunning in her new black dress, a backless and strapless number that hugged her figure perfectly. She wore the diamond necklace Michael had given her, along with her favorite sapphire earrings and the replica of Princess Diana's ring. Michael couldn't help but feel a swell of pride and love as he watched his wife charm everyone around her. However, Michael's mood soured when he noticed David Williams, a man with a reputation for being a smooth talker, approaching Emily. David was tall and impeccably dressed, his smile exuding confidence. He casually touched Emily's arm and shoulder, leaning in to whisper something that made her laugh. Michael's fists clenched. He had heard rumors about David, how he preyed on married women, luring them into compromising situations. Just as he was about to intervene, a soft hand grabbed his arm. "Don't do anything. My name is Rachel, and I know what's happening," said the striking brunette standing beside him. Rachel pointed out two men strategically positioned around the room, clearly watching him. "That man with your wife is David Williams. He's a predator. He plans to take her to the balcony and make a move. I was in your wife's position 7 years ago." Rachel's words hit Michael hard. He watched helplessly as Emily and David moved towards the balcony. Rachel's tale of her own encounter with David, which had led to her marriage's collapse and her subsequent breakdown, mirrored his worst fears. "If you confront him now, it will make things worse. Trust me, I've been there. Let's leave together, and you can figure out your next steps," Rachel suggested. Michael felt a mix of anger and despair as he watched his wife walk away with David. He knew Rachel was right. Confronting them now would cause a scene and possibly push Emily further into David's arms. Reluctantly, he nodded and followed Rachel out of the gala. As they found a quiet spot at a nearby bar, Rachel began to share more of her painful past. 7 years ago, I was here at a similar event with my husband. David charmed me, just as he's charming your wife now. He led me to the balcony, touched me in ways that made me feel desired and special. I was naive and fell for it. We spent the weekend together, and it destroyed my marriage." Rachel's voice trembled as she continued. "My husband was devastated. He couldn't forgive me, and our relationship fell apart. I ended up in a psychiatric ward for months, trying to cope with the guilt and the loss. David moves on to his next target, leaving a trail of broken marriages and shattered lives. You need to be careful, Michael. He's dangerous." Michael listened intently, his heart heavy with anger and betrayal. He couldn't believe Emily, the woman he had loved for over 2 decades, was falling for a man like David. As they finished their drinks, Michael thanked Rachel for her honesty and support. He promised to stay in touch and left, his mind racing with thoughts of how to protect his family and ensure Emily and David faced the consequences of their actions. Back home, the house felt empty without Emily. Michael couldn't sleep, his mind replaying the events of the evening. He decided to take action. The first step was to call his best friend and attorney, John Miller. They had served together in the Air Force, and John had always been there for him. Michael knew he needed John's legal expertise and emotional support for what lay ahead. The next morning, Michael made a list of tasks. He called a locksmith to change all the locks and arranged to sell Emily's car, a BMW he had bought for their anniversary. He also reached out to Joe, an investigative reporter at the Tribune, to dig up everything he could on David Williams. Michael was determined to protect his family and ensure Emily and David faced the consequences of their actions. By mid-morning, John arrived with his paralegal, ready to assist Michael. They worked tirelessly to prepare the divorce papers and a restraining order. John advised Michael to stay calm and focused, reminding him that he had the upper hand. Michael appreciated John's steadying presence, knowing he couldn't have navigated this ordeal alone. As they wrapped up their work, the doorbell rang. It was Andy, the car buyer, there to pick up the BMW. Michael felt a pang of sadness as he watched the car being towed away, a symbol of the life he was leaving behind. But he knew it was necessary. He had to make a stand and reclaim control over his life. That evening, Michael sat alone in his living room, a glass of bourbon in hand. He thought about his children, Matthew and Olivia, and how this would impact them. He resolved to be honest with them, to explain the situation without vilifying their mother. They deserved the truth, and he hoped they would understand his actions. As the sun set, Michael felt a sense of calm wash over him. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was ready to face it. He knew there would be difficult days, but with the support of friends like John and the lessons learned from Rachel, he believed he could find a way through the pain. Michael vowed to rebuild his life, stronger and wiser, determined to never let betrayal break him again. The following evening, Michael sat in his living room, a mix of anger and sorrow weighing heavily on his mind. He had spent the entire day replaying the events of the gala, and the image of Emily with David haunted him. His resolve to confront her was firm, but he knew he needed to keep his emotions in check. Around 8 p.m., the sound of a car pulling into the driveway interrupted his thoughts. Michael's heart pounded as he heard the front door open and Emily's footsteps echo in the hallway. She entered the living room, her face flushed and her expression wary. "Michael, we need to talk," Emily began, her voice trembling slightly. Michael looked at her, his eyes cold and unyielding. "Yes, we do. Sit down, Emily. There are things I need to say, and you need to listen." Emily hesitated but then sat down on the edge of the sofa, her hands nervously fidgeting in her lap. Michael took a deep breath, struggling to maintain his composure. "I know about David Williams," he said, his voice steady but laced with anger. "I know what happened at the gala and what you've been doing behind my back." Emily's eyes widened in shock, and she opened her mouth to speak, but Michael raised a hand to silence her. "Don't. Just listen," he said firmly. "Do you have any idea what you've done to our family, to me? I trusted you, Emily. I believed in us, and you threw it all away for a man like David." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and she began to sob. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was feeling lost and neglected. David made me feel special, and I made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me." Michael's heart ached at the sight of his wife's tears, but he couldn't let go of his anger and betrayal. "Sorry isn't enough, Emily. You made a choice. You chose to betray me, to betray our family. I can't just forgive and forget." As Emily continued to cry, Michael stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the dark night. "I've already spoken to John. We're filing for divorce. You'll be served with the papers soon. I've also changed the locks, and I sold your car. This is just the beginning, Emily. You'll face the consequences of your actions." Emily gasped, her sobs turning into desperate pleas. "Michael, please don't do this. We can work through this. I love you. I need you." Michael turned to face her, his expression hard. "If you truly loved me, you wouldn't have done this. It's over, Emily. You need to leave. Find somewhere else to stay. I'll explain everything to the kids. They deserve to know the truth." With those final words, Michael walked out of the room, leaving Emily sobbing on the sofa. He went upstairs to the guest room, determined to start his new life without her. The next morning, Michael woke up early, feeling a sense of grim determination. He had a lot to do and needed to stay focused. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee, he made his way to John's office. John greeted him with a firm handshake and a look of concern. "Michael, how are you holding up?" "I'm managing," Michael replied. "We need to move forward with the divorce as quickly as possible. I want everything in place by the end of the week." John nodded, understanding the urgency. "We'll get it done. I've already started the paperwork. I'll need you to sign a few documents, and then we can proceed." As they worked through the legalities, Michael's thoughts kept drifting back to his children. He dreaded the moment when he would have to tell them about the divorce. Matthew and Olivia were both away at college, and he knew this news would devastate them. Meanwhile, Emily struggled to find a place to stay. She reached out to a few friends, but word of her affair had already spread, and many were reluctant to offer their help. She eventually found a small, shabby apartment on the outskirts of town, a far cry from the luxurious home she had shared with Michael. Emily's professional life also began to unravel. Rumors of her affair with David reached her workplace, and her colleagues started to distance themselves. Her boss, Karen Phillips, called her into the office one afternoon. "Emily, we need to talk about your position here," Karen said, her tone serious. "There have been concerns raised about your conduct, and it's affecting your work. We can't have this kind of distraction in the company." Emily's heart sank as she realized the full extent of the damage her actions had caused. She was suspended from her job pending further investigation, leaving her feeling isolated and defeated. Back at home, Michael focused on rebuilding his life. He spent hours at the office, immersing himself in work to distract from the pain. He also started reaching out to old friends and reconnecting with his social circle. The support from his friends and colleagues provided a much-needed boost, helping him to stay strong. As the days passed, Michael's anger began to transform into a steely determination. He was committed to ensuring that both Emily and David faced the consequences of their actions. He worked closely with Joe, the investigative reporter, gathering evidence and preparing to expose David's predatory behavior. One evening, as Michael was reviewing some documents, his phone rang. It was Joe, with news that David's latest target had come forward. The woman, Lisa, had been hesitant at first, but agreed to share her story after learning about Michael's situation. "This could be the breakthrough we need," Joe said, his voice filled with anticipation. "Lisa's willing to testify, and we have enough evidence to take David down. It's time to make our move." Michael felt a surge of determination. "Let's do it. I want David to pay for what he's done, and I want to ensure no one else suffers because of him." As he hung up the phone, Michael knew that the battle was far from over, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose, driven by the need to protect others and rebuild his life. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to emerge stronger and wiser from this ordeal. The day Emily Johnson was served divorce papers at her workplace was a turning point in her already crumbling world. The once respected senior vice president at Greenwood Publishing, Emily had prided herself on her professional demeanor and success. But that morning, all her achievements seemed to fade into the background as her personal life was thrust into the spotlight. Emily was in her office going over some documents when her executive assistant, Jessica, knocked on the door. "Emily, there's someone here to see you," they said. "It's urgent." Before Emily could respond, a tall woman in a navy blue skirt and blazer walked in, carrying a large envelope. "Are you Emily Johnson?" she asked, her tone businesslike. "Yes, I am," Emily replied, a sense of foreboding creeping in. "Consider yourself served," the woman said, handing Emily the envelope. She then snapped a quick photo and left, leaving Emily staring in shock at the papers in her hands. Word spread quickly through the office. Whispers and glances followed Emily wherever she went. Her boss, Karen Phillips, called her into the office once more. "Emily, we can't ignore this. You're a respected figure here, but this scandal is affecting the company. You're suspended until further notice." Emily's heart sank as she realized how far-reaching the consequences of her actions had become. Her affair with David Williams wasn't just destroying her marriage, it was dismantling her entire life. As Emily sat in her office, her mind drifted back to happier times, She remembered the early years of her marriage with Michael, when they were deeply in love and inseparable. They had faced challenges together, supported each other's careers, and raised two wonderful children. But somewhere along the way, they had lost their connection. Emily felt neglected and unappreciated, and when David had shown her attention, she had been vulnerable enough to fall for his charms. She regretted her actions deeply, but she also knew there was no going back. The damage was done, and now she had to face the consequences. While Emily grappled with her situation, Michael was relentless in his pursuit of justice. He had gathered enough evidence to expose David Williams, and with the help of Joe, the investigative reporter, they were ready to make their move. Michael decided to start with a public exposure at Emily's workplace. He knew it would be painful for her, but he also knew it was necessary to bring David's actions to light. The next step was to confront David directly, ensuring that he faced the full extent of his actions. That evening, Michael met with Joe at a small cafe downtown. They discussed their plan, going over the details one more time. Joe had contacted Lisa, the woman who had come forward about her experience with David, and she was ready to testify. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Michael?" Joe asked, concern evident in his voice. "I have to be," Michael replied. "This isn't just about me. It's about stopping David from hurting anyone else, and it's about holding Emily accountable for her choices." The following day, Michael and Joe put their plan into action. Joe published an exposé on David Williams, detailing his predatory behavior and including testimonies from multiple women, including Lisa. The article quickly gained traction, and David's reputation began to unravel. Meanwhile, Michael continued to dismantle Emily's life piece by piece. He contacted their financial institutions, dividing their assets and ensuring that Emily would have limited access to funds. He also reached out to their social circle, sharing the truth about what had happened. Friends and colleagues who had once admired Emily now distanced themselves, leaving her feeling isolated and alone. Michael knew that the hardest part was yet to come. He had to tell Matthew and Olivia about the divorce and the reasons behind it. He dreaded the conversation, knowing it would break their hearts, but he also knew they deserved the truth. He decided to call a family meeting for the weekend, asking both of his children to come home. When they arrived, Michael could see the concern in their eyes. They knew something was wrong, but they hadn't expected this. "Dad, what's going on?" Matthew asked, his voice tense. Michael took a deep breath and began to explain. "Your mother and I are getting a divorce. She had an affair with a man named David Williams. I tried to save our marriage, but she made her choice." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, and Matthew looked stunned. "Mom did this?" Olivia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Michael replied, his own voice shaking. "I'm so sorry, kids. I wish things were different, but this is our reality now." The room fell silent as Matthew and Olivia processed the news. Finally, Matthew spoke up. "What happens now?" "We move forward," Michael said, trying to sound confident. "We support each other and rebuild our lives. We're still a family, no matter what." As the days turned into weeks, Emily's regret grew. She realized the full extent of what she had lost: her marriage, her family, her career. She tried reaching out to Michael, begging for another chance, but he remained steadfast. He had made his decision, and there was no turning back. Emily's attempts to make amends with Matthew and Olivia were also met with resistance. They were hurt and angry, struggling to understand how their mother could have betrayed their father. Emily's once strong relationships with her children were now strained, and she felt the weight of her actions every day. One evening, as Emily sat alone in her apartment, she received a call from Rachel. "Emily, I know what you're going through. I've been there. It's not easy, but you have to find a way to move forward. It won't be the same, but you can rebuild your life." Emily listened, grateful for Rachel's support. She knew it would be a long and difficult journey, but she was determined to find a way to make things right, even if it meant starting over from scratch. Meanwhile, Michael focused on his new life. He continued to work closely with Joe, ensuring that David Williams was held accountable for his actions. The exposé had done significant damage to David's reputation, and more women were coming forward with their stories. Michael also began to reconnect with old friends and build new relationships. He joined a support group for people who had gone through similar experiences, finding solace in sharing his story and hearing others' journeys. He also started spending more time with Matthew and Olivia, strengthening their bond and supporting them through the difficult transition. One evening, as Michael sat in his living room, he received a call from Rachel. "Michael, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." "I'm doing better, Rachel. Thanks to you, I've found a way to move forward. I couldn't have done it without your support." Rachel smiled on the other end of the line. "I'm glad to hear that, Michael. Remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole world of possibilities out there, and you have the strength to embrace them." As Michael hung up the phone, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he was ready to face it with determination and resilience. He had been through the worst and emerged stronger, ready to rebuild his life and find happiness once more. Michael's resolve to take down David Williams grew stronger with each passing day. He was meticulous in his planning, ensuring that every move was calculated and precise. His first step was to gather more evidence against David, working closely with Joe and the women who had come forward. Joe had uncovered a wealth of information about David's past, including several instances of similar predatory behavior. Michael knew that exposing David publicly was only the beginning. He wanted to make sure that David felt the full impact of his actions, both personally and professionally. One afternoon, Michael met with Joe at the Tribune office to discuss their next steps. Joe had managed to secure an interview with Lisa, the woman who had been David's latest target. Lisa was brave and determined to share her story, hoping to prevent others from falling into the same trap. "Michael, Lisa's testimony is powerful. Combined with the other evidence we've gathered, we can make a solid case against David," Joe said, his voice filled with determination. "Good. We need to ensure that this is thorough and irrefutable. I want David to face the consequences of his actions, both legally and socially," Michael replied. While Michael focused on his revenge, Emily's life continued to unravel. She had been suspended from her job, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on her. She spent her days in her small apartment, trying to find a way to rebuild her life. One morning, Emily received a call from Karen Phillips, her boss. "Emily, I'm afraid we need to talk. Can you come into the office this afternoon?" Emily's heart sank. She knew this conversation would likely mark the end of her career at Greenwood Publishing. She dressed carefully, trying to muster some semblance of professionalism, and made her way to the office. When she arrived, Karen greeted her with a somber expression. "Emily, I'm sorry to do this, but we've decided to terminate your employment. The scandal has caused too much damage to the company's reputation. We need to move forward, and that means letting you go." Emily nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I understand. Thank you for the opportunity, Karen. I'll pack up my things." As Emily cleared out her office, she felt a deep sense of loss. Her career had been a source of pride and identity, and now it was gone. She realized that rebuilding her life would be even more challenging than she had anticipated. Meanwhile, Michael's campaign against David was gaining momentum. The exposé had sparked a flurry of activity, with more women coming forward to share their experiences. Michael and Joe worked tirelessly to compile the evidence, ensuring that David would have no way to escape accountability. Michael also reached out to their social circle, sharing the truth about what had happened. Friends and colleagues who had once admired Emily now distanced themselves, leaving her feeling isolated and alone. One evening, Michael met with a group of close friends to discuss his plans. "I want to make sure David's actions are known far and wide. He needs to face the consequences, and I need your help to spread the word," Michael said, his voice resolute. The group agreed, each taking on a role in the campaign. They used social media, local news outlets, and word of mouth to ensure that David's predatory behavior was exposed. The response was overwhelming, and soon David found himself at the center of a storm of controversy. Amidst the chaos, Michael knew he needed to focus on his children. He arranged another family meeting, determined to keep the lines of communication open and support Matthew and Olivia through the difficult transition. When they gathered at the house, Michael could see the toll the situation was taking on them. Matthew looked tired and stressed, while Olivia's eyes were red from crying. "Dad, it's been really hard," Olivia said, her voice trembling. We don't know how to process everything. Mom's a mess, and we don't know how to help her." Michael took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I know this is tough, and I wish things were different. But we have to be strong and support each other. Your mom made her choices, and now we all have to deal with the consequences." Matthew nodded, his expression somber. "We get it, Dad. But it's still hard to see her like this. She's our mom, and we love her." "I understand," Michael replied, his heart aching for his children. "Just remember, we're still a family, and we'll get through this together. We need to stay united and support each other." The day of the final confrontation with David arrived. Michael, Joe, and Lisa met at a local TV station for a live interview. Lisa's testimony was raw and emotional, painting a clear picture of David's manipulative behavior. As the interview aired, Michael felt a sense of justice. David's actions were laid bare for everyone to see, and there was no escaping the truth. The fallout was immediate. David lost his job, his social standing, and his reputation. Later that evening, Michael received a call from an unknown number. He answered cautiously, and to his surprise, it was David. "Michael, you've ruined my life. I'll never forgive you for this," David spat, his voice filled with venom. "You did this to yourself, David. You hurt too many people, and now you're facing the consequences. It's time you take responsibility for your actions," Michael replied calmly. David hung up, leaving Michael with a sense of closure. He knew the battle was far from over, but this victory was a significant step toward justice. That night, as Michael sat in his living room, he reflected on the journey he had taken. The pain and betrayal had been immense, but he had emerged stronger and more determined. He reached for the box containing Emily's engagement ring, the one that had belonged to his grandmother. Holding the ring, Michael felt a surge of emotions. This symbol of love and commitment had been tainted by betrayal, but now it represented something new. It was a reminder of his resilience and his ability to rebuild his life. As he placed the ring back in the box, Michael knew he was ready to move forward. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he was no longer afraid. He had faced his demons and emerged victorious, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The weekend after Michael's climactic confrontation with David, he called for another family meeting. He wanted to ensure that his children, Matthew and Olivia, were kept in the loop and felt supported throughout this turbulent time. Matthew and Olivia arrived home, their expressions a mix of concern and exhaustion. The emotional strain of their mother's scandal was evident. Michael knew he had to be strong for them. "Dad, what's going on now?" Matthew asked, sitting down at the kitchen table. Michael took a deep breath. "I wanted to update you both on what's happening. David Williams has been exposed publicly for his actions. It's been a difficult process, but it's necessary to stop him from hurting anyone else." Olivia looked down, her eyes filled with tears. "I just don't understand how Mom could do this. How could she throw everything away for him?" Michael reached across the table, taking Olivia's hand. "I know it's hard to understand, sweetheart. Your mom made some terrible choices, and we're all suffering because of them. But we need to stay strong and support each other through this." Matthew, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "Dad, is there any way to fix this? Can't we try to put the pieces back together?" Michael's heart ached at his son's plea. "I wish we could, Matthew, but some things can't be undone. Your mom's actions have consequences, and we have to accept that. The best we can do now is move forward and rebuild our lives." The room was heavy with silence as they all processed the gravity of the situation. Michael knew that their family dynamics would never be the same, but he was determined to help his children navigate through this pain. Emily's life had become a series of regrets and missed opportunities. She had lost her job, her friends, and most devastatingly, her family's trust. Living in her small apartment, she spent her days in reflection, trying to piece together where everything had gone wrong. One evening, as she sat on her couch, Emily received a call from her mother. "Emily, I heard about everything. How are you holding up?" Emily felt a lump in her throat. "Not well, Mom. I've lost everything. Michael, the kids, my job. I don't know how to start over." Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. "You made mistakes, Emily. Big ones. But you need to find a way to make amends, even if it takes time. You have to show Michael and the kids that you're truly sorry." Emily nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. "I know, Mom. I'm trying, but it's so hard. I don't know if they'll ever forgive me." "Give them time, Emily, and be patient with yourself. You have a long road ahead, but you can rebuild your life if you're willing to put in the work." Emily thanked her mother and hung up, feeling a mix of despair and determination. She knew she had a lot to make up for, and she was willing to do whatever it took to earn back her family's trust. Michael's determination to protect his family and ensure justice for David's victims did not waver. He continued to work closely with Joe, gathering more evidence and supporting the women who had come forward. One afternoon, Michael received a call from Lisa. "Michael, I wanted to thank you. Your support has made a huge difference. I'm starting to feel like I can move on from this." Michael felt a sense of satisfaction. "I'm glad to hear that, Lisa. You're incredibly brave for coming forward. We're all in this together." As Michael hung up the phone, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that his actions were making a difference, not just for himself, but for others as well. During this time, Michael also grew closer to Rachel, the woman who had initially warned him about David. Rachel had her own demons to confront, and their shared experiences brought them together. One evening, Michael and Rachel met for dinner. As they talked, Rachel opened up about her struggles. "Michael, I've been trying to rebuild my life too. It's been hard, but meeting you has given me hope." Michael reached out and took Rachel's hand. "You've been a great support for me, Rachel. We've both been through a lot, but we're stronger for it." Rachel smiled, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you, Michael. I'm just glad we found each other. Maybe together we can find a way to heal." Their relationship grew deeper, each finding solace in the other's strength. They shared stories of their pasts, their regrets, and their hopes for the future. Together they began to envision a new life, one built on trust and mutual support. Michael knew that reconnecting with Matthew and Olivia was crucial. He made a conscious effort to spend more time with them, planning family outings and dinners where they could talk and bond. One weekend he took them on a camping trip, something they used to do when the kids were younger. As they sat around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories, Michael felt a sense of peace. "Dad, do you think we'll ever be the same again?" Olivia asked, her voice tinged with sadness. Michael looked at his daughter, his heart full of love and determination. "We won't be the same, Olivia, but we can be stronger. We've been through a lot, but we're still a family. And as long as we stick together, we'll be okay." Matthew nodded in agreement. "Yeah, Dad, we'll get through this, together." As the night wore on, Michael felt a renewed sense of hope. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but with his children by his side and the support of people like Rachel, he believed they could face anything. The tension leading up to the final confrontation with David Williams was palpable. Michael had meticulously planned every detail, ensuring that David's downfall would be as public and humiliating as possible. With the support of Joe, Lisa, and the other women who had come forward, Michael was ready to take the final step. The showdown was set to take place at a high-profile charity event, similar to the one where Michael's life had started to unravel. The irony was not lost on him. He arrived at the venue with Rachel by his side, feeling a mixture of anticipation and resolve. As they entered the grand ballroom, Michael spotted David across the room, schmoozing with some wealthy donors. David's smug demeanor made Michael's blood boil, but he remained calm, knowing that the moment of reckoning was near. Joe, who had managed to secure a spot as the event's photographer, was strategically positioned to capture every moment. He gave Michael a subtle nod, indicating that everything was set. Michael took a deep breath and made his way towards David, Rachel following close behind. When he was just a few feet away, he called out, "David Williams!" David turned, his smile faltering as he saw Michael. "What do you want, Michael?" "I want everyone to know the truth about you," Michael replied, his voice steady but loud enough to draw the attention of those nearby. A hush fell over the room as guests turned to watch the unfolding drama. Michael held up a folder filled with documents and photographs. This is who David Williams really is. A predator who preys on vulnerable women, destroying their lives for his own pleasure. David's face turned red with anger. "You have no proof, Johnson! This is a pathetic attempt to smear my name!" Joe stepped forward, holding up a camera. "Oh, we have plenty of proof, and it's all been documented and verified. Lisa, would you like to say a few words?" Lisa, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "David Williams manipulated me, used me, and discarded me like I was nothing. I'm not the only one. There are many others who have suffered because of him." Gasps and whispers filled the room as more women stepped forward, sharing their stories. Michael watched as David's composure crumbled, his facade of confidence giving way to panic. As the testimonies continued, Michael felt a sense of justice. David was finally being exposed for the monster he was. Security arrived and escorted David out of the building, his reputation in tatters. That night, after the confrontation, Michael and Rachel returned to his home. They sat together in the living room, the weight of the evening's events settling over them. Rachel looked at Michael, her eyes filled with admiration. "You did it, Michael. You brought him down." Michael nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. "I couldn't have done it without you, Rachel. Thank you for being by my side." Rachel smiled and leaned in, kissing him softly. "We make a good team." Michael reached for the box containing Emily's engagement ring, the one that had belonged to his grandmother. He held it up, the light catching the diamond and casting a soft glow. "This ring used to symbolize so much for me," Michael said quietly. "But now, it's a reminder of everything I've overcome. It's a symbol of strength and resilience." Rachel took his hand, her eyes shining with understanding. "It's also a symbol of new beginnings. You've come so far, Michael, and you're not alone anymore." Michael smiled, feeling a sense of peace. He knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but he was ready to face them with Rachel by his side. As the weeks turned into months, Michael and Rachel's relationship deepened. They supported each other through their individual struggles, finding strength in their shared experiences. Rachel, who had been hesitant to open up at first, began to trust Michael more. She shared stories of her past, her regrets, and her hopes for the future. Michael listened, offering his support and understanding. One evening, as they sat on the porch of Rachel's house, watching the sunset, Rachel took Michael's hand. "I've been thinking a lot about us, Michael, about what we've been through and where we're headed." Michael turned to her, his heart full of love. "What are you thinking?" "I think we have a chance to build something beautiful together. It won't be easy, but I believe we can do it," Rachel said, her voice filled with conviction. Michael nodded, feeling a sense of hope. "I believe that too, Rachel. We've already come so far. The future is ours to create." Michael's efforts to reconnect with Matthew and Olivia continued to bear fruit. They began to heal as a family, finding new ways to bond and support each other. Matthew, who had been struggling with the betrayal, started to open up more. He and Michael spent weekends working on a classic car, a project that brought them closer together. Olivia, who had been deeply hurt by her mother's actions, found solace in her father's unwavering support. She joined Michael and Rachel on hiking trips, finding peace in nature and their shared experiences. One afternoon, as they sat around the kitchen table, Michael looked at his children, feeling a sense of pride. "We've been through a lot, but we're stronger because of it. I'm so proud of both of you." Matthew and Olivia smiled, their faces reflecting the love and resilience they had found as a family. "We're proud of you too, Dad," Olivia said softly. "Thank you for always being there for us." Michael felt a warmth in his heart, knowing that they had all come a long way. They were not the same family they had been before the scandal, but they were stronger, more connected, and ready to face the future together. Despite the sense of closure and peace, Michael knew that life would continue to bring new challenges. There were still unresolved issues and potential threats that loomed on the horizon. One evening, as Michael and Rachel were watching a movie, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Joe, the investigative reporter. "We need to talk. Something new has come up." Michael frowned, feeling a sense of unease. He knew that their battle against injustice was far from over. But with Rachel by his side and his family's support, he felt ready to face whatever came next. He turned to Rachel, his expression determined. "Looks like we have more work to do." Rachel nodded, her eyes reflecting the same resolve. "We'll face it together, Michael. Whatever it is, we'll get through it." Michael smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. The future was uncertain, but he was ready to embrace it. Together with Rachel and his family, he would continue to fight for justice and build a life filled with love and resilience. As the months passed, Michael and Rachel's relationship continued to grow stronger. They found comfort and strength in each other's company, supporting one another through their respective healing processes. Their shared experiences created a deep bond, one that neither of them had expected, but both welcomed wholeheartedly. One crisp autumn evening, they decided to take a walk through Lincoln Park. The leaves were turning vibrant shades of red and gold, and the cool breeze was refreshing. As they strolled hand in hand, Michael turned to Rachel, his expression thoughtful. "Rachel, I've been thinking a lot about our future," he began. "We've come a long way, and I feel like we've built something really special." Rachel smiled, squeezing his hand. "I feel the same way, Michael. Being with you has given me a new perspective on life. I never thought I could find happiness again, but you've shown me that it's possible." Michael stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both of her hands in his. "I want us to keep building this life together. Whatever challenges come our way, I want to face them with you." Rachel's eyes filled with tears of happiness. "I want that too, Michael. I'm ready for whatever the future holds, as long as we're together." They shared a tender kiss, surrounded by the beauty of the autumn landscape. It was a moment of pure joy and commitment, a promise of a future built on love and mutual respect. Rachel's journey of redemption was not just about finding love with Michael, it was also about reclaiming her own life and sense of self-worth. She had started volunteering at a local women's shelter, using her experiences to help others who had been through similar situations. One afternoon, while helping a young woman named Sarah navigate the complexities of leaving an abusive relationship, Rachel felt a deep sense of purpose. Sarah reminded her of herself years ago, lost and seeking a way out. "You're stronger than you know, Sarah," Rachel said, her voice filled with conviction. "You have the power to change your life. It won't be easy, but you can do it." Sarah looked up at Rachel, hope flickering in her eyes. "Thank you, Rachel. Your support means more than you know." Rachel smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment. Helping others had become a vital part of her own healing process, and she knew she was making a difference. Michael's efforts to reconnect with his children, Matthew and Olivia, were paying off. They had started to heal as a family, finding new ways to support and care for each other. One weekend, Michael organized a family barbecue at their home. It was the first time in months that they would all be together, and he wanted it to be a positive experience. As the smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs filled the air, Michael watched Matthew and Olivia laughing and chatting with their friends. He felt a deep sense of pride and contentment, knowing that they were finding their way forward. During dinner, Olivia raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, her eyes shining with happiness. "We've been through a lot, but we're stronger because of it. Here's to our future." Michael and Matthew joined the toast, their faces reflecting the same sentiment. It was a moment of unity and hope, a testament to their resilience and love. Despite the sense of closure and peace, Michael knew that life would continue to bring new challenges. There were still unresolved issues and potential threats that loomed on the horizon. One evening, as Michael and Rachel were watching a movie, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Joe, the investigative reporter. "We need to talk. Something new has come up." Michael frowned, feeling a sense of unease. He knew that their battle against injustice was far from over, but with Rachel by his side and his family's support, he felt ready to face whatever came next. He turned to Rachel, his expression determined. "Looks like we have more work to do." Rachel nodded, her eyes reflecting the same resolve. "We'll face it together, Michael. Whatever it is, we'll get through it." Michael smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. The future was uncertain, but he was ready to embrace it. Together with Rachel and his family, he would continue to fight for justice and build a life filled with love and resilience. As Michael and Rachel looked ahead to their future, they knew that it wouldn't be without its challenges. But they had found a strength in each other that gave them hope. They had learned to trust again, to open their hearts to new possibilities, and to support each other through thick and thin. Michael continued his work with Joe, ensuring that justice was served for those who had been wronged. He also remained dedicated to his family, making time for Matthew and Olivia and strengthening their bond. Rachel's work at the women's shelter flourished, and she became a mentor to many who needed guidance and support. Her own experiences had given her a unique perspective, and she used that to empower others. Together, Michael and Rachel built a life filled with love, resilience, and hope. They faced each day with determination, knowing that they were stronger together. Their journey had been difficult, but it had led them to a place of peace and fulfillment. As they stood on the porch of their home, watching the sun set over the horizon, Michael wrapped his arm around Rachel's shoulders. "We've come a long way," he said softly. Rachel leaned into him, her heart full of love. "And we have so much further to go, but I'm ready for it, as long as we're together." Michael kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Together, always. And with that, they embraced the future with open hearts, ready to face whatever came their way. Their journey was far from over, but they knew that with love, resilience, and each other, they could overcome anything. As the first anniversary of Michael and Rachel's relationship approached, they decided to celebrate with a trip to a cozy cabin in the woods. It was a chance to reflect on their journey and plan for the future. The cabin, nestled in the heart of a tranquil forest, offered the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. One crisp morning, they sat on the porch, sipping coffee and enjoying the serene view. Michael turned to Rachel, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This past year has been incredible. I never imagined I could find happiness again after everything that happened." Rachel smiled, reaching for his hand. "We've been through so much, but we've come out stronger. I'm grateful for every moment with you, Michael." Michael squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I feel the same way, and I want us to keep building this life together, no matter what challenges come our way." Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will, Michael. We've proven that we can face anything together." Back in Chicago, life continued to move forward. Michael returned to his work at the Tribune, now more dedicated than ever to uncovering the truth and seeking justice. His latest investigation, sparked by Joe's mysterious message, promised to be challenging but crucial. One afternoon, Michael and Joe met at a cafe to discuss the new development. Joe's expression was serious as he laid out the details. "Michael, it seems like there's a new player in town, someone with a lot of power and a hidden agenda. We need to be careful." Michael listened intently, his journalist instincts kicking in. "Do we have any leads?" "Just a few," Joe replied, handing Michael a folder. "But it's enough to get started. We need to dig deep and find out what's really going on." Michael nodded, feeling a familiar rush of adrenaline. The fight for justice was far from over, and he was ready to take it on. "Let's do this, Joe. We can't let them get away with whatever they're planning." As Michael delved into the new investigation, he remained committed to his family. He made sure to balance his demanding work with quality time spent with Matthew and Olivia. Their relationship had grown stronger, and they appreciated his dedication and love. One evening after a family dinner, Matthew pulled Michael aside. "Dad, I just want to say thank you. You've been amazing through all of this. Olivia and I are really grateful." Michael felt a surge of emotion. "I'm proud of both of you. We've been through a lot, but we've come out stronger, and we'll keep supporting each other no matter what." Matthew nodded, his eyes reflecting the bond they shared. Always, Dad. Rachel's work at the women's shelter continued to flourish. She had become a beacon of hope for many women, offering support and guidance as they rebuilt their lives. Her own journey of redemption had given her a unique perspective, and she used that to empower others. One day, while leading a support group session, Rachel noticed a new woman sitting quietly at the back of the room. After the session, Rachel approached her with a warm smile. "Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm glad you're here today." The woman looked up, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Thank you. I'm Emily. I'm not sure if I belong here." Rachel's heart skipped a beat at the familiar name, but she remained composed. "You do belong here, Emily. We all have a story, and this is a safe place to share it." Emily nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I've made so many mistakes. I don't know where to start." Rachel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "The important thing is that you're here now. We'll take it one step at a time, together." As Rachel walked Emily through the first steps of her healing journey, she felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment. She knew that her own struggles had led her to this moment, and she was grateful for the opportunity to help others find their way. As the seasons changed, Michael and Rachel continued to build their life together. They faced challenges with resilience and celebrated their victories with joy. Their journey had been filled with ups and downs, but they had found strength in each other. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Rachel turned to Michael with a smile. "I've been thinking about something." Michael raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What is it?" Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I want to start a foundation, something that helps women rebuild their lives just like I did. And I want to do it with you." Michael's heart swelled with pride and love. "That sounds like an amazing idea, Rachel. I'm with you all the way." Together, they began to plan the foundation, envisioning a future where they could make a real difference in the lives of others. Their journey had led them to this moment, and they were ready to embrace it with open hearts. As they looked ahead to their future, Michael and Rachel knew that they were just beginning a new chapter in their lives. They had faced their pasts, overcome incredible challenges, and found love and hope along the way. With their foundation on the horizon and their love stronger than ever, they were ready to take on whatever the future held. Together, they would continue to fight for justice, support each other, and build a life filled with purpose and love. And as they watched the sun dip below the horizon, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be, together, ready to face whatever came next.